On Monday, we'll be doing this thing actually live, and you guys will be able to interact with us during the show via the chat board or chat line or whatever it's called. We'll figure it out before then, and we'll be tweeting about it and Facebooking and Instagram about it all weekend if it does come through tomorrow. Now, this thing that happened last night. Oh, if you guys remember, your boy was telling you how Chris Paul. This series is, by the way, the game ended 119-107. The series is now tied 3-3, and we're looking at a game 7 in the Western Conference. Okay. Right now, it's only one. At the end of the night, we may see two. Tony Allen's going to be playing tonight. He says he's about 60% on that hamstring, but he wants to go out there and compete with his teammates, in true Tony Allen form. But back to the Rockets and Clippers from last night. All right. Now, a couple of things, a couple of prerequisites before this discussion starts. Early on this week, I talked about guys. I'm always talking about guys introducing themselves to the novices, the basketball novices. But then some guys like Chris Paul reintroducing themselves. When you kind of fall out of that conversation of best point guard in the league, but you still statistically are one of the best in a couple of different categories. This is your time to kind of rewrite your narrative, to kind of all the people who said it's finally time for Chris Paul, decade in the league, finally time for him to make a deep playoff run and get to at least the conference finals, right? And he's thinking this is the year. They beat the Spurs in the first round, took him to 7 games. He had an epic game 7 on a bad hamstring. Like, the story was already starting to be written. The legend of Chris Paul was being written. And then there was last night. Everybody in, what were they wearing last night? White. Everybody in white. There couldn't have been tighter booties on this planet. By the time that third quarter ended, and by the middle of the fourth quarter, there couldn't have been more tight booties on this planet Earth than the ones that were wearing white last night. Jesus Christ. The Rockets outscored the Clippers 51-20 from the end of the third to the final gun, to the buzzer. The Clippers missed 15 of their last 16 shots, and the one that they hit was a bullshit. Oh, excuse me, sorry, shouldn't have did that. Was a BS 3-pointer by Chris Paul at the end of the game. And then there was the show that was put on by one Corey Brewer and Josh J. Smith. That's even those two names are even funnier than Dellavedova. The fact that happened, that happened.
Hey,
and meanwhile, you're on the court with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and no one could hit a bucket to save their lives. These dudes was up by 20 in the third quarter. It looked like it was going to be over.
That's what happened. That's what happened in the early game yesterday, that Eastern Conference game. You got all these big names out on the court for the Bulls, and you got people like Dellavedova out there going balls to the wall. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Jay Smo, man. Jay Smo for president.
Whatever. We talked about this yesterday, how the previous 2 games were decided by 25 or more points. Right? All the games, none of these games had been the final score, none of them was under 16 points. So it was like, all right, by the time the third quarter's over, everybody go to bed. You know what I mean? Once you figure out what's happening, go to bed, like my man Rob Calloway did. So for whatever reason, I'm up and I'm tweeting and I'm just BSing. I'm not even really paying attention to the game because of what the score was. So
I was doing research last night.
Researching the inside of your outlets? What was you doing?
I'm saying, man, I had it on, man, but I was saying studying podcasts, and I tell you what I was doing. I fell asleep.
Rob studies podcasts, everyone. Breaking news.
Yeah.
So I'm like tweeting and I'm not even paying attention. But then I look up and I see Josh Smith hitting threes. I see Corey Brewer going to the rack, banging on folks. I'm like, wait a minute. What's happening here? And finally, I'm like, okay, let me text Rob to make sure he's up and watching this foolishness, dude, because it's about to happen. And I'm thinking it's gonna happen like in the way Atlanta came back, and then maybe something happens at the end or whatever. I'm figuring at some point now the Clippers are gonna score some damn points. At least, have the game look competitive. No, that didn't happen. One basket from 6 minutes to the end of the game. One basket, and it was just a 3-pointer at the very, very end. Do I have that sound here? Because am I that cool to have that sound? I do. Listen to this. Epic. That is the final call from the Rockets radio network. It was epic is how he described it, and it was. There's no more apropos description of what happened last night than two things. It was an epic win and a hashtag epic fail on the part of the Clippers. Now, as I remove
No, but I'm just saying, how do you – okay, if you the Clippers, right, and you got this lead, okay, just the two names that you mentioned, right, how the hell do you – I mean, you let these dudes combine for like 30 in the fourth quarter. Just these two dudes. I think Jay Smooth had 14, Corey Burrell like 15 in the fourth quarter.
Yes, 15 of his 19 points in the fourth quarter. Corey Skinny Boy Brewer
combined for 30 points.
Corey Brewer is one of those dudes that when you look at him, that's exactly the way he looked at like he was a kid. He's one of those guys. Like he looked exactly like that in the face when he was a kid, except for the beard and everything. And the funny thing is, James Harden, first of all, was on the bench for all but one play in the fourth quarter. But between him and Dwight Howard, 1 point in the fourth quarter. Now, Dwight still ended up 20 and 20. I think it was 20 and 21, actually. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, between their two big guys, 1 point. And they still came back from 20. Yeah. You deserve every bit of that foolishness. And Doc Rivers talked about it late in the game. He talked about how his team kind of was just trying to run the clock out. Guys walking the ball up the court, not trying to put any pressure offensively on Houston's defense, and it caught up to him in the end. Once you start doing that, you take yourself out of your own offensive rhythm. And then all of a sudden you need to get it back. And guess what? It's too late. The momentum has totally switched to the other team. On a brighter note for the Clippers, DeAndre Jordan went 4 for 6 from the line. He actually hit his first 4 in a row before missing his final 2. So, things are on the uptick in that category.
Yeah, but he only scored 8 points ahead, 9 rebounds.
Oh, like, look at you raining on my parade. Huh?
Meanwhile, you said Dwight had 20 and 21,
20.
And DeAndre,
yeah, man.
And DeAndre had 8 points and 9 rebounds. Yeah. Okay, DeAndre.
Good look
but
at you.
We talked about it. And
hating on DeAndre.
Yeah, man. I'm just saying, but 2 days ago, as we were recording this very show, you were like, I think you said something about the Clippers that took off Game 5. Remember that? Because they knew they were going back to the crib. So they weren't really worried about it.
The Clippers took off Game 5?
Yeah.
What do you mean? The Clippers won Game 5. Or they lost. No, they didn't. They got pushed in, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
They did get pushed in.
Yeah, because that's when you were like in Houston. And you were like, they going back home. So And I told you, I'm not even telling you. I just said, hey, you can't just shut it off like that and think you just go turn it back on when you get home because it just ain't going to happen like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man.
And damn it.
Pressure's on now, man.
They were supposed to be partying. They were supposed to be partying like the Cavs last night, man.
Yeah, pressure is on one particular, two people in particular. Let me say this, 2 people in particular. Because one, obviously Chris Paul, but the other person has to be Doc Rivers. And this is a thought that I had yesterday while I was in the car. I was in the car a lot yesterday. So yesterday I had a lot of time to think. And I was thinking about Steve Kerr and how what he did this year is what he had to do. Like this team had to take a huge leap off of what they did under Mark Jackson for this to be considered definitely Steve Kerr's team, right? He took them from like 50-something wins to 67. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, 54. Yeah, 54.
The number one, well, actually, they ended up number 2 to the Clippers. That seems ironic as we say that right now. They ended up number 2 to the Clippers in offensive efficiency, number 1 in the league in defensive efficiency. So he put his stamp on this team to where you could definitely forget about Doc Rivers. But this is about Mark Jackson, excuse me. But this is something I said about Doc Rivers last year. They fired Vinny Del Negro. We mentioned earlier the trade for Doc Rivers. Or you're not supposed to call it a trade because that's not something that can be done in the NBA. But for all intents and purposes, that's what it is. The trade for Doc Rivers.
They call it being compensated.
When in actuality, last year, they won one more game in the regular season than they did under Vinny Del Negro, and they got ousted in the playoffs in the same round that they got ousted in the year before with Vinny Del Negro. Now, they blamed a lot of it on the whole Donald Sterling situation, which I thought was, BS, as I do the stroking motion with my hand. You guys can't see. But, yeah, I thought that was BS because no one cares about the owner when you're playing basketball. You don't care. Everyone knew this dude was racist. But now that everyone else finds out, it's like, oh, we can't play basketball anymore. Whatever. So this year, where are we again? Where are we again? We're in the second round again, right? Everyone thought it was imminent that these guys are going to end up in the final. Finally, Chris Paul has crossed that threshold. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Your MVP runner-up didn't have to play for a whole quarter. He's had the flu for 2 games. So rest is the perfect thing for him. By the way, shout out to the big balls of Kevin McHale for leaving that dude on the bench for an entire quarter and just hoping that his team holds on to this lead and ends up winning this game. Because if he doesn't, the narrative is totally different. What a stupid move. It turns into that real quick. Yeah. So shout out to the big brass ones on the former Celtic. Yes, indeed. But now we got to start looking. Like, if they lose this game 7 tomorrow, my man, we got to look at Doc Rivers too, don't we? Like, isn't that fair?
I mean, this would be what they call a collapse of epic proportion. Because the comeback from 3-1,
my man.
The comeback from 3-1.
I told you. I think it was like I think it's like 98 point something percent that the person that has 3, the team that has 3 wins the series. Yeah, that's as close to perfect as it gets. Cause like 98, yeah, it's gonna be some questions to be had. So if Doc Rivers want to tell me that there's no pressure and all, like the team that ain't feeling no pressure, it's the team. First of all, you got Jason Terry on your team, and I'm a person who always puts value into that. You know what I mean? The person who's been to the place that the rest of his teammates want to be at, I put that value in what they have in Washington with Paul Pierce, and the fact that these dudes can still get buckets too. Like, this is not a situation where we got like a Elton Brand or like a Juwan Howard or something like that. These are dudes that still contribute and get buckets. Like Jason Terry is the starting point guard now with Patrick Beverly out.
Right.
So these dudes are still getting buckets, but then they bring that veteran that I've been there, guys. Everybody chill out. They bring that to the table. It's one of the things I talked about with the Atlanta Hawks and Thabo Cephalosha. That person who has that player who has that, look, man, it's going to be cool. Don't even trip. Because now, man, Houston playing with house money. Oh, and by the way, going home. Did I mention that? They're going to the crib, cuz. Yeah, things look bad. Who you got? We got like a minute and a half, Rob. Who you got in this game 7? We hadn't made any predictions this whole playoff series, dude. Or playoffs.
I hate to be wrong.
Let's do it, because this is big. Who you got? You got. So, you just said Smooth for president.
Yeah, I go with Houston.
Going with Houston, huh? God. You know what?
And they in Houston.
Yeah, dude, they going to the crib. And my gut tells me to do the same thing, but I'm like, this can't happen to Chris Paul. That's the only thing that's the only thing that's gonna make me pick the Clippers, dude. I'm picking the Clippers.
I want the Clippers to win, but they just unscrewed it, man.
It feels like that way.
I think they screwed it.
It feels that way, dude. It totally. I'm gonna pick the Clippers, man, only because I'm just gonna say to myself, Chris Paul, that he can't let this happen to him. Like, he can't wake up in the next morning and look at the L.A. Times and them talking about how much of a colossal bust this entire season was because of this series.
Kobe Bryant already got a full-page ad ready It's gonna say sucker.
Yeah, steal my house. That's gonna be the headline. Steal my house. B words.
They built this house for me.
We'll be back for hour number 2, the last hour of the week, everybody, right here on the Sports Kings podcast. You got Big Mike, Rob Calloway. We'll come back and we'll talk about some NFL stuff probably. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Sports Kings Live. The email, sportskingslive@gmail.com. Yeah, probably. I don't know.